And speaking of difficult times, over the last 2 years, people in India, just like across the world, have lived under extraordinary circumstances. And we are not just talking about the infection around us, the deaths that we are seeing around us of people known to us, of our loved ones, even the fear of infection. But think about the circumstances where hundreds and thousands of people have not stepped out of their houses for months altogether. Children who have been born under lockdown are being reported to be fearful of coming across strangers. Grown-ups, teenagers who haven't gone to their schools or colleges for the last 2 years. How is this affecting us mentally as a country? In India, mental health, and I don't need to tell you this, is a region which is often goes completely ignored. But it is the last 2 years which have put the spotlight squarely back on this particular area of health, where according to a study which was put together by a group of researchers, non-COVID deaths have also gone up in the last 2 years, where people out of anxiety, out of depression have taken their own lives. Is this being addressed? What is it that we must guard against? To discuss that, we are going across to a panel of our mental health specialists, Dr. Sameer Parekh, psychiatrist and director at Fortis National Mental Health Program of Fortis Healthcare, Dr. Nand Kumar, professor of the Psychiatry Department of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and Dr. Himani Nirula, development behavioral pediatrician. I want to start by asking you, Dr. Parekh, is COVID leading to more cases of depression because of fear, because of lack of interaction, maybe even because of financial difficulties? Even if we are not infected, we are depressed. Have you seen any such cases?
I think the right way to look at it is to understand distress is increasing. And distress is increasing because distress is a natural reaction. And all distresses are not diseases. When it comes to mental health illnesses, 1 in 5 people in the world were suffering from mental illnesses pre-COVID also. Depression is the single largest illness in the world irrespective of COVID. 300 million people globally suffer from it. So it's very important for us to understand that when you have these reactions of anxiety, the worry, the fearfulness, it may affect your sleep a bit. When you are hearing about COVID, or you have a family member who's struggling, or you have anything related to COVID happening in your immediate vicinity or your extended family, talk to someone, open up, work with your support systems. Every problem does not require an expert. And I think that's the approach all of us need to have here.
Dr. Nand Kumar, those who have been infected and survived, have you seen them change mentally and emotionally?
A lot. What Dr. Sameer has mentioned, it can be categorized like those persons who are not having COVID, but they have the distress. But look at those persons, millions of people who are having the COVID infection. But what is happening, we are a little bit ignoring that mental health aspect, because you must have heard about the people complaining about fatigue, insomnia, low mood, palpitation. What we have been seeing in the hospital, like a lot of people who develop COVID, they frequently complain of a lot of fatigue, a lot of feeling like worthlessness. They feel like they are not of any use, especially the medical professional. They also feel helpless. And there is some feeling of there is no point in continuing the life. These things are very, very common. Like what commonly people say, the brain fog or the clouding of that consciousness. It is common. It is very common. But what is happening once we treat the COVID patient and they go back to the home, they take very long time to recover if these issues are not addressed. So a lot of patients are having.
But Dr. Nand Kumar, just a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could this also happen to people who are not infected? Because I know of a lot of people around us whose sleep patterns have changed completely. Of course, we're all working from home. That is one factor. But could this be the onset of mental distress? Your sleep patterns changing, not being able to sleep all night. A lot of people have also taken to alcohol, or they experience brain fog, like you just mentioned. Is that a symptom of onset of anxiety or depression?
The distress is very, very common. No, some distress is very common, and people faces that distress. But if distress level is increased, and the people who are having a lot of distress, leading to insomnia and some sustained period of mood changes, like not feel like talking to someone, feeling very bad, feeling hopeless, feeling that life is not worth living. So if this distress continue for some time, technically what we say for 2 weeks or more than that, then it could fall into the category of depression or something like that. So definitely it can lead to a illness. But
Okay.
with the COVID patient, we are missing it a lot, and that is also perhaps not taking time to recover. Like a lot of patients you might have come across, or
So,
we have seen, they keep on reporting that don't feel like going to work, going back to the work. It's not just because of simple fatigue. It could be a kind of underlying depression, underlying anxiety, insomnia, perhaps lack of confidence. So that should be perhaps properly addressed.
so Dr. Nirula, what do you suggest for this? Should people try medication, or are there alternatives as well? A lot of people, for example, because of this work from home, people who live alone, I know have suddenly got pets. Is that a good idea?
So, for it's the best thing to do here is to talk to someone, as Dr. Sameer was saying, that the person has to open up to someone, even if they're staying alone, they have to be in touch with either a family member or a neighbor or someone or a friend in whom they can confide in and open up of their thoughts, of their emotional status, of how they're feeling, because that is the first step to getting better. Once you speak out your thoughts, once you speak out your emotions, you start feeling slightly better from that point itself. So I think that should be the first step towards getting better as far as mental health of people who are staying alone and working at home or are feeling isolated should be doing. And then having a healthy lifestyle, having a routine, following some kind of physical activity, some recreation activities, and talking to your friends and family members can keep keep the emotional state happier to some extent.
But Dr. Parekh, to be fair, a lot of people do not have that option. I mean, let's face it, how many people can actually speak even within their family about having mental health issues, etc. So what would you suggest as an outlet, as a mechanism to cope?
I think we need to understand this. Expertization during a pandemic is not the only solution. You have several 100% shortage of experts in the country. The solution is not going to an expert here. We need to start from basic self-care, prioritizing a routine, talking to someone, going back to our roots, which is our interrelated, taking care of our support systems. If there are concerns, talking to a general physician, and they would be able to guide you whether you need to go for an expert or not. Understand. And also, I feel utilization of the digital medicine, especially in mental health, has made a remarkable impact. At the same time, continue these conversations. When you have this conversation as a journalist, you have so many people who listen to you. You're having a conversation prime time on mental health. When role models talk about mental health, destigmatization will happen. This is going to be a gradual process. But you continue talking about it, contribute in the fight. I've been telling people, think like this. How do you win a war that's against an enemy like a virus? You win it when everybody comes together by taking their onus, their responsibility, including of their and their family's well-being. So we all need to look at this, together we can. It's something that I've been telling people. That's the only way to look at it. Rather than looking at, right now, majority people require decent support system, compassion from each other. And all of us need to take care of our responsibilities and just tide over this wave, learn from it, and build a resilient future.
Okay, charity begins at home. Must speak to each other more and pick up the phone and speak to our friends as well. But what about children, Dr. Nirula? For them to be cooped up at home, not go out and meet their friends, how does that affect them? And how do they deal with it?
So children are definitely impacted to a huge level, right from early years, where they are toddlers who are typically learn to interact and socialize in their early years, where they're going to play schools and interacting with their peer. And somewhere at home, staying at home, the parents are occupied in their office work, working from home, sometimes having a lack of support structure, and the normal, typical developmental stimulation which has to happen for children is not happening. And post the first phase, we have already seen a lot of increase in social and communication delays amongst the toddlers. And then coming to the children and the middle school, when we talk of adolescents and middle school children, there is an increased amount of irritability, crankiness, temper tantrums have increased, indulgence in excessive use of screen time has been observed. Then certain high risk behaviors like watching a content which is not appropriate on the screen, or indulging into excess use of social media which is not age appropriate. Those kinds of challenges have been observed. There are various behavioral emotional problems which are coming up in adolescent and teenagers especially. So yes, we have.
So what should parents do to deal with this?
Yeah, so in that case, we have to involve
should parents
all
talk
the
more to their
stakeholders.
children, because that will also be seen as trying to interfere in your children's life. As it is, you are with them 24/7, then you're trying to get over involved.
Yeah.
Will that not complicate matters?
Yeah. So the first step is all the stakeholders who are involved in taking care of children have to be involved in building a mental resilience for our children and adults, right from parents to teachers to healthcare people to having task force created. We have to have everybody involved, whoever is dealing with the child. When it comes to parents, the first thing is that parents have to role model the right behavior, especially for children and teenagers. If parents are anxious, then the child is definitely will not learn any coping strategies. Parents have to role model a healthy lifestyle. They have to talk to the child intermittently. They have to have a common recreation time, engaging time, talking with each other about how do you feel, how are your studies going on, giving them a helping hand with their learning skills, academic as well as non-academic learning skills, which are already taking a backseat in today's time because of schools being closed and other physical activities not happening for them. So parents have to definitely take a extra step and lead towards working with children, involving them.
You suggest going back to the old-fashioned family time, where in the evening everyone just sat and had chai together maybe? I know this sounds really cheesy, but
yes.
Does that help at all?
Absolutely. That's the best thing to do. And that's even exercising together, having meals together, playing board games together, everything will help. It will keep the atmosphere light, not talking about COVID all day from morning to evening, not discussing the negative aspects of what is happening in our society, rather talking more about what is positive and what is happening good around us. That will keep them their stress levels less, and they will be and teaching them life skills. Of the most important thing is we forget to teach our children life skills, daily routine activities, get them involved in the household work, have duties assigned for everybody.
It's interesting, Dr. Nirula, you talk about playing board games. I think there's a greater chance of getting your child's attention if you're willing to play Game Boy or something. But anyhow, some people still play board games. 3 cheers for that. Dr. Nand Kumar, what I want to ask you, since Dr. Nirula spoke of how increased exposure to negative images, there was a lot of talk about it. Let's leave the politics aside. But is seeing prolonged images of, death, suffering, bereavement, burning pyres on TV or in newspapers actually affecting people? Does it also hamper recovery in some way?
Definitely yes, because seeing this kind of images, negative images, it has a huge impact, and it affects recovery. Clinically, what we tell is something like a post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a trauma. It's the trauma through the images, negative images, and they're very powerful negative images. And these trauma goes deeper into the psyche, and that also affects the people because they keep on seeing these images in the dream also, and the thought keeps on coming. So this is something like PTSD that is very, very common, not now also, but in the previous academic and any disaster also. And whatever images we have been seeing, it naturally affects that. Uh, and it hampers the recovery in terms of the mental health, because once the PTSD is there, there is a component of depression also, a lot of anxiety also, and that also decreases the immunity to fight the viral infection or any infection. Uh, I think
Okay.
one of the
So
one of
while
the
it is definitely our job to show what is happening, and there is a lot of suffering, maybe there needs to be a rationing of how much exposure one has to images of this kind. So Dr. Parekh, what helps? Some governments are advocating yoga, even in hospitals where patients are not critical. These techniques are being employed. Does this actually help? Yoga, deep breathing, etc.
Yes, anything that improves the quality of your life, anything that gives you some mental peace, a bit of cheerfulness and joy will help you. But let me also give you a more wider perspective, and starting from what you had just asked earlier. Yes, you have to report, you have to share, no debate around that. People need to know what's happening because it reinforces COVID appropriate behavior. At the same time, I feel conversations which are positive, which have learnings, like the work done by healthline frontline workers, like the work done by Samaritans here and there who are doing so much. It is these positive stories which also need to find place in mass media and social media, so that people know that amidst all this chaos and distress, there is a lot of good work also happening. Positivity has no substitute. So relaxation, physical activity, music, art, plants, pets, family time, fun, lots of video calls, keeping connected, doing whatever best you can during this time, going one day at a time, staying positive. Because at the end of the day, we need some hope. We need hope. This is a darkish tunnel. We need to see the light. The light will come with good moments, even in these difficult times. We need to hold on to those good moments, hold on to the positivity. That's going to pull us out on the other side. And then remember this struggle, learn from this struggle. That's why I'm saying this. When something like this happens, an unprecedented pandemic that has happened, it's not merely about illnesses. It's a lot more to do with social responsibility.
Dr. Nandkumar, have you seen an increase in number of people who are suffering from survivor's guilt? And the other aspect also is, this is a unique situation where common citizens, we are not healthcare professionals, have been thrown into a situation where you're scrambling around trying to arrange oxygen or trying to get medicine, and then suddenly if the person that you are arranging help for passes away, that puts another kind of pressure, or there is an emotional blowback. Have you seen cases like that, and how do you deal with it?
There is a wide range, in fact. Say, for example, you might be getting call from the people who want help, but out of say 10 calls, you might be able to help 2, 3, 4, 5 people, not perhaps more than that. So it is happening all around. In fact, in the medical profession also, we are facing. Say, for example, if I am getting 10 calls, out of that 10 calls, I'm not able to help not more than 2, 3 people. This is a very painful fact, because as a professional, we had never thought of such time that you will not be able to arrange a bed for a person or oxygen cylinder. So that leads to huge guilt feeling with different kind of intensity among common people also, plus also medical professionals. So what we do, we try to rationalize, in fact, this is the time, even if we are able to help 2 people out of 10 people, that we perhaps this is the best we can do. But this is not that easy, in fact, because we have seen our colleagues not able to manage the bed, not able to help people. Even they're trying to cope best in
what
terms
helps you, sir? What helps you cope? Since you are right there at the front line, what helps you cope?
See, what
Music,
I try to,
sport?
in fact, since I am a psychiatrist, so I try to help as much people as possible on the phone. But they also expect me to arrange bed and oxygen and everything, a lot of things, medicine. But I'm not able to. So even if I'm able to help 2 people out of 10 people or 3 people out of 10 people, I try to focus more there, so that that can generate more positive emotion. and that should not lead to the guilt. So this is the way to do that. Plus, naturally, other
Dr. Himani Narula, Dr. Nand Kumar, and Dr. Sameer Parekh, thank you very much for having joined us with your advice and expertise. Everyone needs to have their nerves calmed at this time. We will take back, hopefully, a lot of the suggestions that you've given and carry on this conversation like you've said. For the time being, though, thank you very much, all doctors, for having joined us. I will see you on Monday. Till then, stay safe. Thanks for watching.